After reading about vulnerability by Manson, I've been conducting a social experiment. Does displaying weakness early really turn women off? After trying it out, I can say, without a doubt, yes. I opened up to a woman early and mentioned some tough times due to various circumstances in life. Immediately, I felt a loss of attraction. Now she is no longer interested in intimacy. I think this experience is common for many men. It is fascinating to observe this aspect of human nature. The question now is there any way to recover that attraction? I feel that the answer is probably no. Once you experience that hit, it's almost like a subconscious loss of attraction that you can't come back from. Am I right? This is the part of the social experiment that I find very intriguing, but I think the conclusion is fairly obvious. Is mentioning divorce perceived as weakness or vulnerability as well? I am curious about everyone's thoughts. Story 1. There isn't a reason to. Would you even want someone who loses attraction to you because you mentioned some difficult times you are experiencing? They are not worth your time. Story 2. Sorry, that opportunity has passed. Either way, you are better off. Imagine if you got back together with her. You would always carry the knowledge that if anything in your life goes wrong and you need someone to talk to, she might judge you for needing support. You are better off. Story 3. Do you really want to be with someone who will act like this when you go through a rough patch? Wouldn't you prefer to be with someone who wants to support you if things get tough, rather than reject you? I would say you are fortunate to have discovered this so early. Story 4. You didn't do the wrong thing, brother. You just did it with the wrong person. There are many wrong people out there for you. Hold out for those who come closer when you open up, not those who run away. Most of those girls were into the idea of you, not the real you once that idea is shattered. Story 5. Consider it a learning experience. From my experience, women appreciate hearing about your vulnerabilities after you have made positive changes in your life. For example, they are not interested in your drinking problem until you are well into your recovery journey. They are not concerned with your financial issues until you have already begun to pay down your debt. They also do not want to hear about the root causes of these problems until you have started addressing the symptoms. The goal is not to hide your vulnerabilities, but to seek help, work on your issues, and share the lessons you have learned from your struggles and healing process. So, live fully, but to use an analogy, until they ask, they do not want to hear about your labor pains, just show them the baby. Story 6. Once someone gets the feeling of repulsion, it is almost impossible to reverse, especially if it is related to displaying emotions. Story 7. In my experience, some women can handle various degrees of vulnerability. I am as vulnerable with my girlfriend as I think is appropriate and as much as I believe she can handle. Any further openness may result in a loss of attraction, disconnection, or possibly even an argument. However, being vulnerable early is often a bad idea. Regardless of how they may typically handle it, it leaves a negative early impression. Story 8. Honestly, this might be a blessing in disguise. It's like a test for emotional compatibility. You opened up and her reaction was the result. Maybe it's not about recovering what was lost, but rather recognizing that you need someone who sees your vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness. You have saved yourself potential years of being with someone who couldn't stand by you when times were tough. Now you can focus on finding someone who appreciates you for who you are, the good and the challenging parts. It will make for a much stronger and more genuine connection in the future. Story 9. Why would you want to? Please consider that you will have to self-censor for the rest of your time with this person, and that is beyond exhausting to maintain. Let the trash take itself out. Story 10. Sorry to say this, but it is done. Use this as a learning experience. Always be careful about whom you confide in. Story 11. This might not be your case, but it's important to mention that many people mistake oversharing and compulsive reassurance seeking for vulnerability. Usually, it is not vulnerability but low self-esteem that causes one to lose the initial spark or attraction. Story 12. Depends on how early what the information was and how you framed it. I wouldn't blame her for losing interest if there was trauma dumping on a first date. If you've been dating for a while and you're open and honest about a problem you're having, then it's kind of her problem, not yours. Men can absolutely be vulnerable in a healthy relationship, with the understanding that they shouldn't come off as helpless. Helplessness is a huge turnoff for most women. Women don't expect men to be perfect, unfeeling, invincible beings with no problems. What they do expect, and rightfully so, is that when problems arise, we have a plan. If we can't deal with problems in our own lives, how can we be expected to handle challenges we encounter as a couple? Is that a little unbalanced? Perhaps. Is it unfair? That depends on your outlook on life. They deal with many situations that could be considered unfair. Life isn't always fair. When I'm having a hard time, I feel fine opening up to my partner about it. However, I do my own reflection first. That's how it should be. I don't bring my problems to her and lay them at her feet. It's not fair for one adult to do that to another. I work on my issues independently first, and then I share that with her. Because at the end of the day, I alone am responsible for my feelings. Story 13. If a setback is all it takes for your partner to lose attraction to you, they are the wrong partner. Set the standard high. Everyone goes through challenges, but your partner will show their strength by how they respond to your setbacks. Story 14. It is common, but do not enable it. Just tell her she clearly is not emotionally mature enough for you and move on. Story 15. I think classifying this as showing vulnerability does not set you up for success here for two reasons. It gives you a skewed idea of what turns women off, and it places too much blame on her in a way that does not allow you to change and improve your dating skills. Not discussing your ex is an excellent rule for dating in general. Nobody wants to hear about your previous relationship, just as you do not want to hear about theirs. They also do not want to hear your hard luck story, at least not on early dates. Present the best version of yourself. Showing vulnerability can mean different things. If you were moved by a piece of art on a date, showed empathy to a stranger in need in front of her, or talked emotionally about how much you love your nieces and nephews, these are all examples of vulnerability that could be very attractive to many women. As for whether you can recover, no one can tell you because women are diverse in their feelings and reactions, just as men are. What you need to do is try. If you like her, communicate with her. Ask if your comments about your ex turned her off and if she would like to give you another chance. If she wants to, she will. If she does not, she won't. You just need to start doing the right things and stop trying to guess how she will react. Story 16. Women have little empathy for this. I had trouble in bed, opened up, and she was naked in my bed, my first time ever having sex. She suggested we could just be friends and that she wasn't ready for a relationship. I felt stabbed in the heart. I drove her home, and she got out, closed the door, and didn't look back. I called her the next day, and she only talked for 10 minutes, definitely a change. She changed all her dating app pictures. My message was undelivered, and I woke up in the middle of the night and unfollowed her on social media. She finally texted back the next morning, and I refollowed her. I lied about unfollowing her, so she ended things with me. I went from first kiss to feeling sad in the span of a week because I opened up, and both she and I responded poorly. Never again. Never show weakness to a woman. Story 17. Unfortunately, there are some unspoken truths about dating. Everyone has different deal breakers. Many do not realize what they are until confronted with them. In my experience, showing emotions too early is not beneficial for the same reasons you have experienced. Being vague has worked for me in the past. You can reveal more as your relationships progress. This is an unfortunate truth about dating in today's world. Story 18. No, you missed the opportunity. Move forward and consider it a learning experience. The discussion about being vulnerable is not genuine. They do not truly want that. You will face negative consequences each time you attempt this. Story 19. It's a test. Lesson learned. Don't do it next time. Waiting for the question, why don't men open up? This is why. Story 20. Let it go. Either you find someone who is completely into you, or the person who was into you realizes you have moved on and tries to win you back. Either way, you are in a good position. Story 21. I think all that is just unappealing. I understand that it can happen naturally, but why waste your time? It may or may not be a good idea. You definitely cannot or should not actively attempt to repair any unintended damage. but they must find you very attractive and charismatic. You would be surprised how much, both good and bad, people can overlook and forget because of that. That said, it depends. If you wanted a relationship from it, I think it is best to move on. Story 22. They are not worth it. The last girl I dated, I opened up after about 2 days. She was completely understanding and supportive. Anyone who loses attraction because you show emotions is not worth your time. Story 23. Well, you tested her to see if she is someone you can rely on in difficult times. Nobody wants a fair-weather partner. Story 24. Have some self-respect. If she responds negatively to me being vulnerable, my attraction is lost, and I am not going to make an effort to recover it. Story 25. Wow, that is mean. I am sorry. I cannot comprehend how vulnerability would be a turn-off. If she cannot support you now, she will not be able to support you later. You are better off, friend. Story 26. Social experiment? So you were testing her? What exactly did you say to her? There is a time and place to share certain things. Being vulnerable does not equal oversharing. It honestly sounds like she might have lost interest because you revealed that you are a divorcee. Story 27. I am a woman, but I would say let this one go. Any woman who loses attraction because you are an actual person with real feelings is not worth your time or effort. It sounds like she wanted sex without emotional investment. Story 28. There is no such thing as too early. If she was going to hesitate at vulnerability, it didn't matter when you approached it. Bullet dodged. Story 29. There is no coming back from this one, my friend. Hopefully, next time you won't fall for the vulnerability and opening up trap. Don't show vulnerability to your wife, girlfriend, friend with benefits, or a woman you are planning to date. If you want to open up, there are plenty of options for you. Parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, siblings, male friends, your barber, or a professional therapist. The vast majority of women will view you as less of a man if you show vulnerability. If I told you to play a version of Russian roulette, would you do it? The gun holds 10 rounds and 9 out of 10 are loaded. You spin the chamber and have to shoot the middle of your right thigh. The prize for succeeding is simply a thank you for sharing this experience with me. Are you going to take that risk for no benefit? By opening up, you are playing Russian roulette. There is no benefit in playing a game you will lose 9 out of 10 times. Story 30. Probably not. Once attraction is lost early in a budding relationship, it is gone. Just let this one go and chalk it up to experience. Whenever a woman loses interest in intimacy, it is over. When she starts refusing intimacy, denying intimacy, or conditioning it on your behavior, it is finished. Story 31. Once emotional trust is lost, it is difficult to regain. You cannot fully trust her to be yourself, be open, or communicate freely without fearing that something will turn her away from you again. I do not know how she can rebuild your trust after that. You would always feel like you are walking on eggshells, afraid to be yourself. Story 32. Sure, you have a couple of options. You could get into a bar fight, walk into traffic, and get hit by a bus, light your house on fire and save her from it, start dealing drugs, or strongly express how much you dislike RuPaul's Drag Race. Story 33. Assuming what you are reading is correct, I ask you, why? Why would you want to be with someone with whom you can't be yourself? We all have to deal with the challenges life throws at us. Having that person with us, who loves us no matter what, is invaluable. I suggest you move on from that immature situation and live your life. Story 34. It is definitely damaging, but with women, you always have a second chance. If you project strength and stoic resolution going forward, it will eventually erase the negative effects of revealing your vulnerability. Story 35. No, sir. Once you show emotion, it's over. Nothing dries up a vagina like a man's tears. Don't. Story 36. She has lost interest because you have been overly soft and weak in showing feelings. Could you regain her interest by reversing that? The whole treat them mean, keep them keen approach is an option. Sure, it's an act, but if it works, you can always ease off a little back to your normal self. Story 37. I learned the hard way that you can't open up like that to women. I don't care how that comes across. That's reality. Story 38. No, you cannot win a woman's respect once you've lost it. That is why starting in the friend zone rarely works. If you follow a woman's lead, you will eventually be single. As they say, only women understand women, and they often have conflicts with each other. Story 39. Girls today often become uncomfortable if you show any kind of weakness. It's a skill issue, and that's just the reality. Trust me, I made that mistake recently and won't do it again. It's not entirely your fault, but you did make a significant error. My advice is to only show emotion during truly significant events, like the death of a parent or a close sibling. In other situations, she may lose interest quickly. This is based on my experience. Perhaps your situation will be different. Story 40. No, just cut your losses and move on. The only way to learn is by experiencing it the hard way. I hate to say it, but it will toughen you up for the next time. Story 41. No, if she loses attraction after you are vulnerable, you should not be with that person. No one should be with that person. Story 42. I believe you have been fortunate to recognize the traits in this partner at an early stage. This is not something you can easily recover from, and you have likely avoided a serious mistake. Alternatively, you could adopt a more assertive attitude, watch motivational videos, and maintain a tough demeanor to keep her interested. Story 43. You cannot. You learned a valuable lesson for your next relationships. Regardless of what everyone on Reddit loves suggesting, women are not interested in men being vulnerable with them. This is not unique to this girl. The comments suggesting it was her issue are simply insincere. Story 44. Probably not. Learn your lesson and move on. It's like a magic trick. The audience will beg you to show them how it's done, but if you ever do, it's over. Story 45. Why would you want that? If she cannot handle your vulnerability, she is not worth your strength. You dodged a bullet. She does not love you. She used you. Story 46. Not really. We are not allowed to be open about our emotions as men. We are forced to be a woman's rock and put up with their problems with no complaints. However, when we mention our problems, it is often met with disgust or repulsion, or we are told, "I'm not your therapist." Perhaps 1 in 10 women are not like that, but most are, including those who signal online about how it is okay for men to cry and be open. Story 47. It's not worth it to be with someone when you have to hide the difficult parts of your life. You can't selectively choose which aspects of a person you want to be with. People are not machines. My friend recently passed away, and I couldn't attend the funeral because I was hospitalized with severe food poisoning. The girl I'm with listened and is understanding. You deserve nothing less. Story 48. No way to get it back. Women can be cold-hearted when it comes to situations like this. Once that opportunity has passed, they may not care about you anymore. Story 49. It's often too early to be vulnerable with a woman. Many women do not feel sympathy for men when they are hurt. Instead, they may feel disgust. What kind of person feels disgust instead of compassion for someone who has been hurt? Such reactions can reflect a lack of empathy. Story 50. You'll probably need to disconnect and then start dating her again as if it's the first time. Don't apologize or discuss having a bad day. Just cut contact. Story 51. I agree with some comments above. If you express your feelings to a girl and she suddenly doesn't feel attracted, there is no point in trying to rekindle that. Find someone who does not change based on personal things you share, especially if they negatively impact the relationship. You should be able to be vulnerable, and ideally, the relationship should grow stronger in every aspect. Story 52. They are showing that they do not want to be with you as a complete human being and only want to be with a facade of masculinity. Consider it a bullet dodged. Story 53. Brother, I'm sorry it went that way. I advise you to get some distance from her. If she is turned off, ongoing contact will not improve the situation. She may realize what she is losing and try to rekindle things. Then it will be up to you whether you want a relationship where you cannot show vulnerability, because it's clear she cannot handle it. Story 54. The question now is whether there is a way to recover that attraction. My feeling is probably not. Once you experience that setback, it feels like a subconscious loss of attraction that is difficult to regain. Am I right? Inverting this, you displayed vulnerability, and they pulled back their attraction. She failed the relationship test, and now you need to figure out how to handle this information. Story 55. I don't think there is a safe way for men to open up to women and show they are not quite what they were initially attracted to. This can be a potential risk for some women. Perhaps some women are willing and able to embrace the openness and vulnerability of men after a shift in their dynamic. It is very risky for men to leave the path of emotional restraint. Story 56. I have experienced this before. My current girlfriend and I have only been exclusive for a few months. She knows about my current and past struggles and has not batted an eye. The only thing she is concerned about is our schedules not aligning well, as she is unable to see me as much as she would like. Story 57. I felt a deeper connection, love, and attraction for my ex when he shared vulnerable and difficult experiences with me. I could feel my heart swelling with love at that moment. This person is not the one. Story 58. It could be related to how you spoke about your ex. Did you display bitterness, complain about her manner, or make negative remarks? If the relationship is new, she might be imagining how you would behave during disagreements with her. I suggest trying to rewind a bit and start over with fun activities for your dates, keeping things lighter for a while. However, it may be too late for that. If possible, consider mentioning the cooling off period you noticed and discussing the changes you've observed or what has changed for her. Story 59. I've always said it's best to show vulnerability early on to save time and money. Make that third date count by being open on the second date. Why wait for her to lose attraction after 14 months if it's going to happen? Do you have any idea how much time and money you'll be spending on a dead-end relationship? Open up right away so you know who you're dealing with. Story 60. Vulnerability is honesty, in my opinion. In all relationships, we need to be honest, whether at work, with platonic friends, best friends, lovers, or people we meet in a shop. The degree to which we reveal ourselves honestly, whether a little or a lot, depends on how much we respect, trust, or love them. It is okay to generalize and hold back at the beginning. When and if the relationship deepens, you can share more. Always, it is a balance of sharing between both individuals. This approach minimizes the risk of oversharing or being misunderstood too early. I believe it is a privilege when people share their innermost feelings. Story 61. It's wild to me because I become more attracted to a guy if he is vulnerable with me. If he opens up and tells me something, I am much more likely to trust him and feel connected to him, which is a huge driver of my attraction to someone. I agree with other posters. If they lose attraction because of that, then they don't deserve you. Story 62. Way too early. Keep in mind that this is your mistake. This is how attraction or the loss of it works. What did you hope to gain by revealing this, even if it wasn't too early? Reflect on that. Story 63. The unfortunate truth is that experiencing revulsion when seeing weakness in men is a very deep and primal process. The good news is that some people are more than their animal selves and choose to rise above their worst base traits. If she wants to be that type of person, you can help reassure her base self that you are a dependable and strong individual worthy of respect. Instead of copying and pasting, read the reply to this comment. Story 64. No, it is not worth it. The person you can be open with about your lows will not lose attraction because of it. I recommend that any man should not be completely emotional when sharing those moments. Share in a way that demonstrates you are in control of your thoughts and emotions. Women can lose attraction if a man shows he is not in control. I don't believe it is related to the subject itself. Story 65. She didn't lose attraction. She lost respect. But this isn't common among women. It's just common among narcissists. Story 66. There's no point in trying to fix it because she is one of the bad ones, and you should aim for someone better. Story 67. There is no too early for vulnerability. If I can, without consent and against my will, learn about my date's former substance use, time as an entertainer, the 6 months she worked in the adult industry, her history with previous relationships, and personal habits on the first date, then you should be able to mention having experienced some tough times. If you can't, then that's not a high-value partner. Story 68. While I appreciate anyone who is emotionally sensitive and shows vulnerability, there are two reasons I would be cautious if a man is vulnerable too early in a relationship. First, some men use vulnerability to create a false sense of connection and can be manipulative. Second, there are men who are bitter and insecure, complaining about everything as if their lives are unfair. They may see themselves as victims in all situations. These two types, while not exhaustive, are often the only men who display vulnerability early in a relationship when trust is just beginning to be established. Therefore, it may be wise to wait until both partners trust each other before revealing vulnerabilities. This approach allows you to open up to someone you know you can trust. That said, being vulnerable is not inherently wrong. It is a positive trait that demonstrates emotional awareness. Once trust is established and the relationship becomes serious with defined roles, a man who can be open and vulnerable is incredibly attractive. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.